Most people view nationality through the lens of identity, heritage, or an inherited right. But through the cold lens of forensic finance, citizenship is something far more clinical. It is a civil contract between an individual and a state. It is a contract where one party, the government, reserves the power to unilaterally rewrite every term at any time without your consent. If 100% of your money, your income, and your legal identity are concentrated under the jurisdiction of a single government, you are not secure. What you have is a single point of failure. Imagine a Tuesday morning. You walk to an ATM to withdraw cash for dinner, but the screen reads, "Transaction declined." You check your banking app. The balance is still there, but your wire transfer to a foreign supplier has been blocked. This isn't a technical glitch. This is the onset of capital controls. The forensic record of the last century is relentless on this point. Whether it was Argentina in 2001, Cyprus in 2014, or Lebanon in 2020, the sequence is always identical. When a nation faces a sovereign debt crisis or political upheaval, the doors lock. Capital is trapped. Domestic assets are either aggressively taxed, forcibly converted, or frozen entirely to keep a failing system on life support. If all your eggs are in that one national basket, the door locks behind you before you even realize the building is on fire. The ultra-wealthy solved this problem a century ago. They don't wait for the smoke to look for an exit. They understand that to preserve generational wealth, you must decouple your life from the volatility of any one nation-state. They diversify their geography with the same clinical precision others use for a stock portfolio. In this video, we are not discussing illegal evasion. We're discussing flag theory, a legal established framework used by the world's most sophisticated families to plant flags globally. By the end of this analysis, you will understand the mechanics of geographic diversification and how to begin building your own sovereign protocol, even on a modest income. Welcome to Forensic Finance. This is Chapter 1. The danger of single state dependency. To understand why the global elite are obsessed with secondary passports, we have to look past the velvet ropes of airport lounges and into the mechanical heart of international law. We must examine a concept that has existed in the shadows of the financial world for over half a century: flag theory. This isn't a strategy born in luxury boardrooms. It is a clinical observation of how states actually behave. Its architect, Harry Schultz, realized a fundamental truth that most people are too patriotic to admit. A government is, at its core, a service provider. They provide security, infrastructure, and a legal framework in exchange for your taxes and your compliance. But when a service provider becomes insolvent, predatory, or begins changing the rules of the contract to seize your assets, the average citizen is trapped. They have no cancel button. They are a captive market. Flag theory is a defensive architecture designed to break this captivity. It is the process of decoupling the vital organs of your life, your identity, your money, and your physical body, and placing them under different competing jurisdictions. It is the literal application of "don't put all your eggs in one basket" to the concept of the nation state. In the forensic world, we look at this through the 5-flag system. Flag 1 is your citizenship. This is your legal home base. Ideally, this is a country that does not tax income earned outside its borders and maintains a neutral, non-interventionist stance in global conflicts. It is your ultimate shield. Flag 2 is your legal residency. This is where you actually live, breathe, and spend your time. It should be a place with high quality of life and personal safety, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the place where you keep your wealth. Flag 3 is your business base. This is where you generate your cash flow. You want this flag planted in a jurisdiction with a stable, pro-growth legal system and a predictable tax code. Flag 4 is your asset haven. This is the most critical flag for capital preservation. This is where you store the fruits of your labor, your cash, your gold, your securities. It must be a jurisdiction with a fortress-like banking system and a deep-rooted respect for private property. Flag 5 is your playground. The places where you actually spend your money and enjoy your life, which should be chosen based on lifestyle, not legal obligation. Consider the logic here. You're taught to diversify your investment portfolio. You would never put 100% of your savings into a single stock because you understand systemic risk. So answer this. Why would you bet 100% of your existence on a single legal system, the very thing that governs your stocks, your property, and your physical freedom? Diversifying stocks only protects you from market volatility. Diversifying jurisdictions, planting flags, is the only thing that protects you from sovereign volatility. The elite don't see the world as a map of borders. They see it as a menu of options. They bank in country A for its secrecy and reserves. They reside in country B for its safety. And they hold the passport of country C for its global mobility. They understand that in the history of finance, the survivors of the great collapses weren't just the ones with the most money. They were the ones with the most geographic flexibility. In the architecture of survival, there is a lethal distinction between jewelry and fire extinguishers. A luxury watch or a high-end vehicle is jewelry. It only retains its perceived value while the social and economic grid remains stable. But an offshore bank account and a secondary residency? Those are fire extinguishers. You don't buy them because you want to use them. You buy them because by the time you smell smoke, it's already too late to go shopping. Let's look at the first line of defense, offshore banking. In popular media, offshore is a term whispered in the context of criminal tax evasion. In forensic finance, however, it is the clinical process of decoupling asset custody from jurisdictional risk. When you keep 100% of your liquidity in a domestic bank, you are essentially providing an unsecured loan to that institution. If your home nation faces a sovereign debt crisis, the government has the legal right to execute a bail-in. We saw this in Cyprus in 2013. Ordinary depositors woke up to find a significant percentage of their savings had been confiscated by the state to save a dying banking system. Beyond outright seizure, there is the silent thief, currency devaluation. If your life savings are denominated in a single currency, and that nation's central bank enters a period of hyperinflation or aggressive printing, your purchasing power can evaporate by 30, 50, or 80% in a matter of months. Your balance on the screen stays the same, but your ability to buy fuel, medicine, or passage out of the country vanishes. A flag planted in a jurisdiction with high foreign exchange reserves and a legal history of respecting private property, such as Switzerland, Singapore, or even certain structures in the Cook Islands, acts as a fortress. It ensures that even if your home country's borders are financially sealed, you maintain the oxygen of liquidity. Today, this doesn't require a briefcase of cash and a flight to Zurich. Modern digital banking frameworks allow you to establish this flag from your living room, provided you know how to navigate the compliance hurdles. Then we have the flag of physical presence, secondary residency, and citizenship. At the street level, when a crisis hits, be it civil unrest, a pandemic, or a sudden change in conscription, law's the most valuable asset on earth isn't gold. It is the right to leave. If you hold only one passport, you are legally property of that state. If they decide to suspend travel or close the borders, you have no recourse. The elite view a second passport not as a travel document, but as a perpetual exit option. There are two primary paths here. The first is residency by descent, or jus sanguinis. This is a forgotten gold mine. Millions of people are unaware they qualify for European or Latin American citizenship simply because their grandparents or great-grandparents emigrated from those regions. This is the most cost-effective lifeboat in existence. The second path is residency by investment. This is a capital for access trade. It doesn't always require millions. Several nations in Latin America, Southeast Asia, or the UAE offer long-term residency for the cost of a mid-sized car or a modest real estate purchase. The goal here isn't to abandon your home. The goal is to correct a massive power imbalance. When a government knows it, citizens have the legal and financial means to move their lives elsewhere. That government is forced to be more competitive, more disciplined, and more respectful of individual rights. Geographic diversification is the only way to remain a sovereign individual in a world where the rules of the game can be changed by a single executive order. We must now confront a brutal reality. In the pursuit of freedom, the most lethal mistake you can make is confusing sovereign risk management with tax evasion. Through the lens of forensic finance, tax evasion is not a strategy, it is a deferred death sentence. Those who attempt to disappear from the system by hiding assets usually end up losing everything. Not because governments are smarter than they are, but because they have voluntarily stripped themselves of their only legal protection. Since the 2008 financial crisis, the world has entered an era of absolute transparency. Protocols like the Common Reporting Standard, CRS, and FATCA have turned international borders into one-way mirrors. Over 100 nations now automatically exchange the bank account details of non-residents with their home tax authorities. The romanticized idea of a secret Swiss or Cayman account used to hide money from the state died over a decade ago. The truly sophisticated, the real practitioners of flag theory never hide. On the contrary, they practice ruthless compliance. They report every flag they plant, every corporation they register, and every account they open. Why? Because an asset is only valuable if it is clean and mobile. $1 million trapped in a foreign bank that you cannot explain, justify, or wire is a useless $1 million. It is a cage, not a shield. The forensic record shows that when a nation becomes predatory, it searches for any legal pretext to freeze the assets of those attempting to exit. If you have underpaid your taxes or failed to disclose a foreign holding, you have handed the state the keys to lock the door while the building is burning. The elite keep their records surgically clean. They utilize double taxation treaties, legal trust structures, and the tax incentives of nations hungry for capital. They do not break the law. They choose to live under systems where the laws are more logical and transparent. The distinction is existential. A tax evader is a fugitive, living in fear that a single audit will erase their future. A sovereign individual is a transparent taxpayer who has arranged their flag so that while they follow the law to the letter, no single law from any single nation has the power to ruin them. Preserving your life's work is not a game for the reckless. It is a game for the disciplined, those who understand that to be truly free, you must be the most compliant person in the room, but you must have the power to choose which room you stand in. History does not record the most accurate predictions, it records the most prepared individuals. The difference between a refugee and a sovereign individual often comes down to a single cold factor, the timing of the decision. If you wait until the headlines are screaming about a crisis, until the gold shops have shuttered their windows, and until capital controls are officially announced, the trap has already sprung. At that point, any attempt to plant a flag is not only prohibitively expensive, it is likely illegal. Your action plan must begin while the sky is still blue. Here's the 3-step sovereign protocol for anyone, even those with a modest income, to begin decoupling from the single-state trap. Step 1. Liquidity liberation. Do not keep your entire life savings within one banking system denominated in one currency. Begin by establishing a legal international account or holding assets with global liquidity, such as physical gold held in a private vault or self-custodied Bitcoin. This is how you separate your purchasing power from the fate of a local central bank. Step 2. Redundant identity. Audit your heritage immediately. If you have ancestors from nations with jus sanguinis laws, begin the application process today. If not, pivot to nations offering digital nomad visas or residency based on modest savings. The goal is not to move tomorrow, but to possess a spare key to an exit door. Step 3. Internationalize your competence. Can you generate income if your borders are closed and your local currency is worthless? Shift your skill set toward global platforms where you can be paid in hard currencies. When your income is no longer tied to the health of a local economy, you have planted the most important flag of all. Ultimately, you face a binary choice. You can remain a subject of the system, someone who hopes the rules stay fair and the government remains solvent. Or you can choose to be a sovereign individual, someone who understands that true security only comes from owning your options. The door of opportunity usually closes silently, without a warning bell. Preparation is the final boundary between being a victim of the forensic record or the author of your own survival.